Snacks, thanks for being on here today. Look at this. Yeah, seeing a few magical things in the corner here as well, up in the
Oh
top.
yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
absolutely. Just as we're on the tail end of, or just fresh out of the oven of PizzaDAO as well. So, yeah. No, thanks for coming on, and want to yeah, let's dive in first and foremost here to I guess a little recap of this year's PizzaDAO event and how that all went. Man, what a huge coordination event. I'm always so stoked that you put these on and help coordinate.
It's so much fun. It's like I'm a big fan of real-time strategy games like StarCraft and
Hmm.
some people probably played Command and Conquer when they were young. I think today people play still StarCraft. I don't know. And there's Beyond All Reason. I bet you're a Beyond All Reason fan if I had to guess.
You know, I never got into any of these like strategy games. They seemed like way too involved, and
Yeah.
I was like, I just cannot commit that kind of like it ends up being a complete rabbit hole. I wouldn't be here
It's a
today
rabbit hole
if I
for
was,
sure.
yeah.
If you want to be good at one of these games, it's a serious commitment. But I think throwing a global pizza party certainly has aspects of, or maybe many people maybe played. I'm over here. I'm like finding Pizza Day things in my vest.
Nice.
Look, so this is what I was rocking at the Philly
Oh,
party.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was doing man on the street interviews. Um, this is a very old sticker. Our design has gotten a little more clean,
Hey,
and so this
wearing
is like the
pizzas. Let's
first
go.
sticker of
Yeah,
Pizza Day. This is from 2021.
sick.
Um, yeah. So anyway, pizza parties all over the world, an organism is kind of like, I would say it's like Roller Coaster Tycoon. It's like an RTS. It's sort of fun. It has a ton of, social elements, of course. So it's
Hmm.
not video game. It's you are definitely actually working with people, and but for me, yeah, like I'm a community builder. It's what I
Hmm.
love. It's what I've been doing for, oh, I mean, more than 10 years, well before PizzaDAO.
Yeah, yeah,
So for me, it's like a dream. It's amazing. It's so fun and it's so rewarding just to think, because I think people talk about community a lot. People say the word,
mhm,
people pay lip service, but when it comes, like, what is it actually, right? And like
mhm,
what is the downstream impact of it? And I see that. Like, when I think about community, I think about all of the multiplicative repercussions of
mhm.
individual interactions at all these events, and
Right.
just like the massive downstream ripple effects from chance encounters
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
pizza party. And I think it's hard for people to fully, it's hard for me to comprehend, uh,
Mhm.
period. Like what that actually does for, just for the cities, for the communities, for the people.
Right.
But I know that it's absolutely massive, because I know that where I am today is largely from meeting people, getting introduced to other people, going to events, getting acquainted. So yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I just love that we get
yeah.
to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you see anything this year that was different from last year, or just like different turnouts or different types of people coming through or engagements or interactions or anything?
Definitely every party is getting more popular. This is
Mhm.
what we hear across the world, is that last year's party was good, this year's party was better. More people know.
Yeah,
There's less promotion needed
right.
because people expect it. This was our 6th year, and that's, the first year we didn't actually throw parties because it was the pandemic, and we
Right.
did direct to pizzeria at partnerships where they would just give the pizza away to, they brought it to healthcare workers and schools and, all over. And but we have been throwing this party in 5 years,
Yeah.
or for 5 years in a lot of cities, and that has built, that there's nothing like consistency,
Yeah.
in building just movements. And we show up. We've been showing up for years, and so people show up. They know the party's going to happen. They're ready to go to the party. In Philly, we barely had to promote. We got like 100 people through the door, and that's great.
Amazing. Amazing. And I think, like you said, people are expecting it, and because they can attach it to another day. We know that this was like the Bitcoin Pizza Day. The day that Laszlo was spending spending Bitcoin and got these pizzas, right? So we want to be able to we can commemorate that, and people remember that even if they're outside of like this regular circle, they're starting to say, oh, what can we do on Bitcoin Pizza Day, and then they find these things, right? And I was actually pretty impressed with our party. We had some maybe more toxic maxis, as I like to refer to them as, showing up to our party, right? And there's a lot of people that were just like, nope, nope, that's we won't attend that because that is completely outside of the ethos and the spectrum. So, do you maybe this is a good place to kind of pivot towards your like you were an early Bitcoiner.
Yeah, so I actually learned about Bitcoin from Lulzsec hacking Sony
Oh,
in 2011. Yeah,
hmm.
who funny enough, one of those guys started Celestia actually.
Ah,
Mustafa
yeah, yeah.
Al-Bassam. Yeah,
Mustafa, yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. He was Lulzsec. So that's June 2011 or so,
Hmm.
and I think approximately when like there was an article about it. I went down the rabbit hole. I read the white paper, and I
Yeah.
was a math guy. I mean, what I say, I'm still a math guy. I don't know. Yeah, but I read it and I said, okay, well, this is currency backed by math. It's not so easy to agree on things all the time, but math is one thing that it's pretty easy to agree on. Like if you're
Hmm.
disagreeing with me about math, then you better have a really good reason.
Yeah. Well, 2 + 2 = 5, right?
But so when money is about agreement of a value, it immediately kind of clicked for me. So I was early. I believed in it, and like it was like $20 a Bitcoin when I learned about it, and
Hmm.
and then I ultimately built community around it. Like a couple years later, I started organizing meetups and taught tons of people about it, and just facilitated a
Yeah.
space. It's funny actually
Well,
because the meetups we did in Philly, they were in a public place. They're at the 30th Street station, which is our train station, and
okay.
we would push together a bunch of tables outside the Pizza Hut, actually at
Outside the
30th.
Pizza Hut.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
and and so it'd be like 30 of us, with the tables pushed together in like a big circle, having stolen all the chairs from the seating area.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I was curious, like what that scene looked like back then, because that was a little bit before my time. I didn't find it till 2013, so I was a little bit behind you. But yeah, that there was like a pretty special era, I think, from that kind of like that was just before that was I guess maybe some of the first big introduction that came in was kind of that 2010 to 2012. I guess it wasn't, yeah, somewhere in there, right before the next run up happened. And a lot of people found it again in 2013 and 2014. But that kind of first era there, or that kind of Gen One, perhaps we could call it instead of Gen Zero. There's like some pretty cool stuff that was happening there, and especially the activations that were going on. So that's really cool you were a part of it.
I mean, it was really small. Like I was that guy who basically would show up with Bitcoin in a trench coat because on ramping was so hard. So, and I
Yep.
knew this because I had hopped my funds from, my bank account to Dwala, this Iowa-based payment processor that somehow
Oh
was the
yeah.
only way you could deposit to Mount Gox, which was
Yep.
the Magic the Gathering online exchange, of course.
Yep. Yep.
And then I deposited on Mount Gox, and I bought Bitcoin, and then I would post on Craigslist because I knew no one else could figure out how to do this, and I would meet people and sell them Bitcoin. Uh,
Crazy.
just
Crazy.
like on ramping people. And that
Hmm.
was like, 2011, 2012. And then 2013, yeah, I started organizing a community in Philly. I actually moved from Portland back to Philly where I grew up.
Hmm.
And then I remember like the other coins started dropping a few years in, and the like Dogecoin. I remember when there was this kind of infusion of Dogecoin energy into the
Yep.
scene, which is
Yep.
such a funny and different vibe, because
Yeah.
Bitcoiners are like, they're nerdy. They're like, I wouldn't say they're the silliest,
No, by far not. I
No.
mean, this is where I really attracted with Dogecoin, right? Because my brother and I were huge Doge fans, and, from Reddit, right? We knew the meme, that was it. And I mean, when that first came out, I was like, yo, bro, they have made a Dogecoin, and I'm gonna mine it. And I'm going for because I started mining and playing around with Litecoin and everything. It's the same thing, same. Okay, boom, I'm mining. So I started mining Dogecoin. Of course, you had to just because for the meme and the culture and everything. But at that time, it was still like it was profitable to do so, right? Or it was one of the
Yeah.
more profitable ones. So I dove into that immediately, and yeah, really just found that culture and just the silliness and the playfulness that came with it was just like throughout that currency and still continues to be that way too.
It was, and I remember it was like a fun moment, and I wasn't sure what to think. I liked the people, of course, with Dogecoin. I don't think I bought any until much later. Uh,
Okay.
One thing I learned that's really funny, I feel like we learned a lot more about Laszlo and the transaction this year, and and we've been teaching people a lot more about it. So there are a few things that are really funny about it. Well, one, not funny but interesting, is that Laszlo kicked off GPU mining.
Mm.
He was the first GPU miner of Bitcoin, which is was a huge change, right? He was winning
Uh-huh.
all the blocks. So you start to understand why he had tens of thousands of Bitcoin to spend on pizza.
Yeah.
The other thing that we learned is that he actually spent 80,000 plus of Bitcoin on pizza.
Damn.
Right. So yeah, so because he continued buying pizza, this was not a
Yeah.
one-time
It works. It works.
where yeah. And then the other funny thing is that it took him 4 days to get the pizza. He posted on the 18th.
Okay.
Yeah, so Bitcoin,
Okay.
it's not the fastest network at 10 minutes a block or whatever, but, but when you start to have to wait 4 days for your pizza, uh,
Yeah.
and then also leaning into the fact that he paid this guy. He didn't pay Papa John's. Like Papa John's
Right.
is still not equipped to accept Bitcoin for your pizza. And this guy Jeremy Sturdivant actually went on and he accepted the Bitcoin. He ordered the Papa John's, and the way we tell that story at PizzaDAO is that people are layer zero. You
Mm.
need two
Mm-hmm.
people who are
Mm-hmm.
willing to ascribe value to this token in order to have any transaction so that's I mean, and I think PizzaDAO very much lives in that spirit. That's why we think that's such a core part of the story, is because we're out here building this network of people that you could well, certainly you could exchange 10,000 Bitcoin today, but you could make a new token or something, or start a new thing, and someone there would probably sell you pizza for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so as you got this, transition, I guess I'm not going to say from Bitcoin, but like you start to see how now PizzaDAO is like running purely on like EVM and Ethereum, right? So obviously there's a shift towards that kind of stuff. I'm kind of curious how that all came about for you because, like myself and many others who find Bitcoin early and then find ourselves somewhere else afterwards or spending a majority of our time elsewhere, uh, I kind of want to go through that process and just see like what happened for you because I feel like there's a lot of Bitcoiners that are feeling like we are, they don't understand why and how people get to where they are.
Yeah, okay. I want to go back to something you said earlier, which is that the
Sure.
toxic maxis came to your party.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this happened all over the world, especially in Canada. I think it happened I saw a post, I think it was in Edmonton,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
about a toxic maxi who said these guys are all right. Basically, it was kind of like, I know this is a DAO shitcoin party, but
Yeah.
which we're DAO. But I don't think we're pumping shitcoins, but he said, but these guys, they accept me. It's a nice party. I get to go there. I can talk to people about my own beliefs as a
Mm-hmm.
toxic maxi, and basically I'm going again next year.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good event. And that feels great because there is this
Amazing.
rift in the ecosystem between the quote unquote toxic maxis and the builders who are just trying to do some stuff that Bitcoin is not very good at doing.
Correct.
And I think there's an understanding to be reached. I I'm just as, into Bitcoin as these guys. I just also like to do some other things with
Hmm.
my smart money. There's there are just other, like, that's it. I mean, if Bitcoin was as easily programmable, if I could vibe code Bitcoin into apps and do crazy things with it and make
Hmm.
governing decisions, and it's getting there, like, it can do some stuff. And we always believed, right? You're an early, like, the idea was always, uh, it basically that any improvements would roll back to the mother chain kind of
Right.
idea,
Right.
right? And has that played out? Like, a little. I think we're still pretty early.
Which is sad. And that's what I'll say is that yes, we're still early, but if you look at every other ecosystem, how much further ahead it is in that sense. And it's just for whether we want to call it trade-offs, whether we want to call it, learning from past mistakes, however we want to look at it. But this stuff that's happening in Bitcoin, like there is the possibility to improve Bitcoin dramatically. There are BIPs out there that will enhance so many things, right? And even simple proposals that people like most of the community agree upon. Well, they're starting to say, well, no, we need to make sure we want to add other things into it. If we're going to do this, we may as well do a bunch of things because we are only going to get one shot at this to actually get an improvement. Because it's like Bitcoin's probably going to ossify at this point because there's just not enough. There's too many divisions across too many different layers, and seeing with what we have now, we're with the Lightning Network. I mean, I have friends that work at Lightning, and I'm appreciative of what they do. I don't think Lightning is the answer, is the solution. It ends up just becoming custodial, is the only way that it actually scales properly for people to actually use. And now we're just recreating banking, is the way I see it. There's some other proposals that are, like you were talking about, getting back to the main chain, like BitVM style things are starting to try and do that, or at least pay for that. But that's still early infancy, and some of these people see, oh, this is an EVM related thing, and they're like, oh, shitcoinery, shitcoinery. We don't want that. So it's tough. It's tough, and I want to believe in it. I want to be able to see it progress. And I mean, that's why so many of us have just decided, hey, like let's go someplace where we can have fun and we can be silly and we can actually get shit done,
And we can
right?
be
Because
everywhere too. Like, we can, um, funny story. You mentioned Lightning. Laszlo did buy pizza on the Lightning Network. I don't know
okay,
yes, he did.
nice,
He was like the first.
yeah,
I think he was the first transaction on Lightning. He bought some pizza. Uh,
sick.
but yeah, I think you can. It's all the same community. Is how I think about it. Like, yes,
Hmm.
there are the toxic maxis. Maybe they're over here sometimes, but it's nice. We're Toxic maxis come to the pizza party. You're invited. You can tell people that they're shit coining, and that's fine if you
Yeah.
want to. Um, and so, especially I think within the rest of the ecosystem where people are building more products, more communities, more
Hmm.
tools, more stuff that uh where they're collaborating. I think that really is the same people. It's
Mm.
the
Hmm.
ecosystem for the different chains. Like, sure, maybe you're using a different programming language, in some case a different smart contract language. Maybe you're doing Rust, maybe you're doing Solidity, like whatever, but it's the same people. And especially with vibe coding, it's even more the same people.
Yeah, yeah, definitely seeing more and more of those crossovers there, and even starting to like bleed into the AI. I think they're starting to see some AI people starting to blend into crypto and vice versa.
If you want to
So I think
transact,
that,
like, and you're vibe coding, dude, what we did with vibe coding this year with PizzaDAO's party infrastructure, right? We have a dashboard where all
yeah,
receipts come in, they get OCR'd into numbers, they
right,
they get summed by party. We have a server side wallet, hot wallet that we deposit money into, and you can just click a button in the UI and it sends the money. You don't have to sign in your wallet or anything. It's just server side. It's
sick,
amazing.
yeah,
It's amazing.
amazing. So yeah, you've been vibe coding the whole like pizza DAO infrastructure for the most part.
Yes. Yeah, over the last, like,
Amazing.
6 months, right when the models dropped in mid-December and the game
Hmm.
changed, I honestly, I had a similar moment to the one I had with Bitcoin and then had
Yeah.
successively, again and again, like, oh wow, this is a big deal. Oh crap, I should pay attention. That finally clicked for me when the models got really good. I was a little bit
Mm.
dismissive because they were turning out so much slop, and I was like, I messed around with them, but then it got crazy in December, so
Mm.
I just went full in, and I've been talking to Claude probably 6 to 12 to more hours per day since. Uh, yeah, like I'm
Yeah.
7,000 commits deep on
Yep. Amazing.
since
Amazing.
December.
Yeah. What were you like? Were you programming at all before? Were you into, did you do some of that stuff, or what's your background on it?
So I studied math. I mean, I dropped out, but I studied math. I took
Sure.
all the comp sci courses. I know the underpinnings, but I never wanted to learn syntax because syntax is not fun. Syntax is like, it's
Hmm.
just you. My buddy, who's a programmer, he said, every language is bad. The question is just how bad.
Pick your, yeah, worst, favorite of the worsts.
Yeah, because you have to express these very specific things to a machine that is very specific and will not, if you miss a bracket or you miss a
Hmm.
word, a keyword, or if maybe they're like Apple would always do this, right? They would update they're always making their function calls shorter, which I agree with. It's great to refactor and make change like window like whatever the long ass function name is to like window, or and they do this as they release successive versions of Swift, but then you have to refactor everything in your own code base, and it's just this all those, it's just a painful the pursuit of perfection, which is unattainable and much nicer to be able to talk to an AI.
Right. Yeah, that's it's something I haven't fully pursued yet. And again, just like we were talking about earlier about these, the gaming side of things. Well, I know where this is going to go, so I've been slow, just kind of, all right, waiting until there's a proper opportunity, because it's going to be a full rabbit hole again. Actually met some of my buddies, and I hadn't seen them in a while, and show up, and I saw them at an event, and they're just like, still the computer's out, they're still going, and I'm like, what's happening? And they're like,
I got so
I just haven't
consistent.
met this thing straight. I've got like, they got a handful of agents going, they're prompting one to get into the next one and the next one. And they're just like, it's insane. I can't stop. Like, I have so much to do.
Yes,
So it's, yeah,
I've
really
got
cool to
window
see.
right over here. I'm like fighting the urge to tell Claude to do something. It is like that. It's this feeling of, it's like you have superpowers, or it's just the most leverage that an individual has
Right.
ever had. And I feel like the trajectory over time has been more leverage to the individual. Like the internet, huge amount of leverage. It's
Mm-hmm.
being able to post. You see people completely change their lives, build huge organizations and all sorts of things, with social media, I think, and just technology, being a developer, there were developers shipping crazy things pre-AI, but oh man, as an individual person, can you do more today than ever before? It is
Mm-hmm.
just absolutely unreal. So it's going to be, and it hasn't even really permeated society yet. I don't think so. We're going to have a wacky decade.
I think you're right. Yeah, I don't see enough normies really interfacing with it yet, and I don't know that it's really there yet for them. But once that starts becoming, like, once that finds its PMF for normies, like how do normies interact with this, that gives them the power and the tools that you're experiencing, and I mean so many other people are already, that are maybe more already tech savvy. Once that gets into the common person, like, I have no idea where that's going to go, but people are just, it's going to be absolutely insane how much that changes and evolves things. So
Yeah.
yeah, we probably aren't ever going to have to order groceries again or think about, oh, what do I need? It's just going to know. Like, maybe that's it. It's just like based off of how you're texting and interacting with things and communicating with people, or just like following your messages, and it understands. It starts to learn more about you, which is also scary in some senses too. But maybe it's just your life will just be catered around your prompts and interactions, which you're just kind of happening voluntarily.
Yes, it's tough to feel comfortable with the AI having intimate details of everything in your life. I think we
Hmm.
felt for a while, I think the average person felt security through obscurity. In the
Mm.
met,
Hmm.
we all felt like we were just tiny bits in a massive sea of data, and
Yeah.
even the NSA can't process this. But I think that has, if that was ever true, which is debatable, I think today
Yeah.
it is much less true.
Yeah.
And the panopticon is super real when you have AI able to traverse all these data structures, even on a on a small level, like in PizzaDAO. And this is not like panopticon stuff. This is just an example of how data that you didn't have and that you now have and you can actually
Mm.
process. And so I pointed a bot at PizzaDAO's Discord, and I pulled all the attendance records from all of our calls going back to 2021, and they were in a few different
Dang.
formats, right? There were links, there were images, there were docs, and some docs had multiple attendance records in them. It was kind of a mess. And for me to process this, it's called munging, right? When a human processes data. And it sounds about as glamorous as it is. and and it would have taken me, it could have been days. And I knocked this out in an afternoon with Claude, and Pizza now has all our attendance records for now. The other danger with having such an ability to gather and collate and build data is that when there are holes in the data, which of course there were periods of time where maybe we weren't running the attendance bot or whatever, then you have to be, data is its own, we call it a foot gun, right? In tech, when you like have it, but data can be confusing if you're not. It can be misleading. Data is
Sure.
actually dangerous to have if you are not responsible with your consumption of data, because
Hmm.
you may convince yourself of something that is completely not true because you didn't properly process the data. You didn't recognize there was a hole in the data. So it's like, anyway, I still awesome to have data. I say this because
Yes.
we got our attendance data together, and then a few people were like, "Oh man, I'm so sad. Like, why isn't my attendance represented here?" And it turned out they had shown up a lot in a particular period in time when the attendance
Uh,
system was not as robust, or we didn't run the
mm.
attendance bot for a few months. Maybe it went down, or we were transitioning, whatever it was in 2022.
Yep.
but but this is also true on a wider level, I think, with data here. And because the AI, it's it's doing stuff and it's sophisticated, but it's not gonna warn you if you are getting the wrong idea necessarily. Like, it's
Because yeah, it's trying to think that you are going. You're prompting it the way for it to go, and it thinks, oh, this is the data and this is the information I'm looking at. Okay, I will just keep taking it and giving you what you need back. Versus like, are you sure, or questioning what you're doing?
yeah, there's
Or is this accurate? I feel like we're maybe off the plot here a little bit. It might be nice to have that like guardrail built in for some of this stuff where it's saying, this just doesn't quite add up. Like kind of having that, I guess, just like a human element of it, of just like critique as well. I feel like, I don't know, even for me, I mean, I'm just a chat GPTer for the most part, and a few other LLMs, but it never argues with me. It never like says, hey, you're really dumb or doing something inappropriate. It just, you are so right. And I'm like,
you are the customer.
feeling like a wizard.
Yeah.
You are the customer. That's right. Yeah. Customer's always right. Yeah. Cool, cool. Now you're in Philly.
Yeah.
You're in Philly. You've been there for forever. I don't know much about Philly, to be
Yeah.
honest. I know the Philadelphia Flyers. I know you got like a Liberty
The
Bell,
Broad Street Bullies. Yeah, we got the bell.
that, and then your vest as well. Like those are the things that I know in Philly.
Yeah, I always joke we're the once and future capital of the United States. We were the
Okay.
capital a while back, and it's a very old
Yeah.
city. It's Ben Franklin actually designed it with, well, a bunch of other people, I'm sure. But they were really inspired by Paris. Uh, So there's
Okay.
some Parisian elements to the downtown. There's some parks. It's very walkable. It's very diverse. It's still very affordable. Actually,
Hmm.
as major walkable cities in the world go, it's pretty unique, and I love it here. Great food scene. I'm in South Philly,
Oh.
great part of town, and the blockchain community here goes back pretty far. I mean, we were organizing these events way back in 2013.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I think with some of the older scenes, you know, the people who became big in the scene they're not really showing up to the meetups anymore. You know, they're still around,
Mhm.
but it's like, you know, so I think a lot of people have built pretty large entities in space and done a lot of work. One guy who used to be a cool community organizer, actually, and organized the ETH meetup, which is a great meetup,
Mhm.
and educated a lot of great devs. His name's Ben DiFrancesco from Scopelift, which is, I mean, they're great devs, and they've done work on like Uniswap, like a bunch of the big protocols, and
Cool.
Ben has just supported the local community for like from as long as I remember. Still supports Scopelift, always sponsors PizzaDAO, and like, but yeah, we have it goes pretty deep. You know, we have a lot of old OG devs in the area.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, cool. Cool. So I made mention of your vest. You're wearing it again today. I think every time I've seen you, you got the vest on. Let's talk about the vest.
Okay, so I was getting locked out of my apartment and had a pretty ambitious door. It would always close when I would like think, oh, do I have my key? And boom, door's shut, and I would have to break into my apartment. And yeah, and I realized that if I had my key attached to my vest, I had it on a little lanyard, and I attached it to one of the like zipper pulls, and then my vest is on me, and I'm leaving my apartment. Well, then I can't be locked out.
There you
And
go.
I had inherited, I think, a couple fishing vests. Like, I don't know how they came into my possession, but they were my grandpa's. And
Okay.
so I had a couple fishing vests, and I started wearing it so that I had my key in my pocket, and when I would leave my apartment, I wouldn't get locked out. And then I realized that it was actually pretty utilitarian to just have a vest that your stuff is in, because when you leave your house,
Hmm.
instead of having to think about filling your pockets, you put your vest on and you walk out and you have everything.
Yep.
It's kind of, I mean, women will understand this because they have purses, and
Purses. Yes.
everything is in the purse, and you just grab the purse and you go. But for men, and for me, before I was a vest wearer, you know, you come home and you empty your pockets. Maybe
Yeah.
you forget to empty a few things out of your pockets. They go through the wash. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah.
You put them in different places in the house, right? Like maybe you're disciplined and you drop them all on that table right by the door, but probably not.
Mm.
And they end up all over the house. And then when you're getting ready to go out the next day, you have to go around, you have to shove everything back in your pockets. And you're also maybe putting your wallet in your rear pocket, and then you have to sit on it, which is like not ideal. And you see people, they get the phone belt, they put their phone on the
Yeah.
belt, the belt holster.
Holster.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's like, that doesn't look
Yeah.
that cool. So I think it's kind of an unsolved problem in
Right.
menswear, and this is my solution. And yeah, and I started wearing pins. I started upgrading the vest. I have 31 pockets now. Yeah,
Right.
and I have 42 pins.
Right. Naturally.
As
42.
yes,
Yeah. That is the answer that it should be. Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so yeah, now I do it every day. And the funny thing about having pins, like people are like, well, you know, you're a big pin guy, huh? And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess, but I had 5 pins. And then if you walk around wearing 5 pins, especially when you're going to crypto conferences, NFT conferences, you pick up like a few pins every day, maybe like
Yeah.
even as many as like 3 to 5 in a day.
Hmm.
And suddenly you're covered in pins, and you limit it at 42 because naturally, and also because they get heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. Pins are, yeah, especially the new enamel ones, right? Like they're
I'm only
wicked. Those
wearing
new
enamel.
enamel
I
ones.
mean, me and out
Yeah.
here, I'll show the
Yeah. Let's do
stream the
it.
full. So yeah, yeah, the enamel pins are great because a lot of I've had so many types of pins that I'm a bit of a concern. I can tell the people there's this one type of pin that's like a plastic cover and it has the paper back, and I
Mm.
know this pin, and whenever anyone gives me one, I say, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be wearing this one because I know that ultimately the front of the pin is gonna fall off of the holder.
Yeah. So it's just not gonna make it.
No.
Not
I
gonna
mean,
make it.
I can be
Yeah.
pretty selective about it now. I got like this one is pretty funny. You probably know Landon who lives in Toronto. Whenever he sees me, he grabs this and he goes, "Okay, hold on, let's just take a break." Okay, action.
Nice. Nice. Oh, that's a gooder. That's a gooder. Yeah, the I've been collecting some pins for. I've got another jacket that I wear too, so I've kind of taken some inspiration from you there and adding pins because it's like they're starting to be cool now. Instead of like, okay, I got to wear. I mean, also I will say like POAP and their patches. I will give them that. You know,
Get my
like
POAP
the
pin
patches are
down
pretty.
here. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
nice,
wait, here it
nice.
is.
So nah. Oh, yep, yep. The OG,
Yeah.
perfect. So it's been cool to kind of have like these kind of assets, these flair, as we like to put it in that way. I've been as far as like the utilitarian side of things. I like that you mentioned that and use that word because like high functional things, and I think yeah, menswear can really lean more that direction as compared to like fashionable. I when I travel, I use a fanny
Yeah,
pack.
it's great.
And I find that to be my like high utility thing where it's like, okay, I've got my wallet, I've got my passport that goes, just behind, and it's everything's in order. Passport, phone, wallet, AirPods can go in the corner. Oh, there it is. There it is. Boom. See, so I mean, yeah,
Absolutely.
depending, yeah, high utility, high functionality on all these things. So
Yeah, it's all
yeah, pretty
about
cool to see.
if in like I'm wearing sweatpants and I've got my vest, and I asked, "What do you think's in my pants pockets?" Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, no need for it. No
Yeah.
need for it. Yeah, cool. Back to kind of as we're getting into PizzaDAO and stuff, how did this all come to light for you? What kicked this off? How did this start?
So I got introduced to NFTs in 2018,
Hmm.
and I was not paying attention to Ethereum. I was still going to Bitcoin meetups and stuff, but I was a little checked out. I was focused more on South Philly and just living my life as in my 20s. And then my buddy, actually, who was my meetup co-organizer, took me to New York, and I was at the Rare AF auction, which was in January of 2018, and it was where have you seen the Pepe documentary, Feels Good Man? Okay,
Yeah,
so I'm in the
yeah,
background of that auction shot. Like I'm wearing this
sick.
South Philly pom pom hat, like a winter hat.
Okay.
So I was lucky enough to be there, and that was my introduction to NFTs. So I'd learned about Rare Pepes and Decentraland
Yeah.
and CryptoPunks and basically everyone, CryptoKitties, of course, everyone who was doing anything. Shout out Vancouver,
Hmm.
CryptoKitties.
Yeah, shout out.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So I immediately learned about everything, and I was bought in, and I just thought CryptoPunks were really cool. I like looking. Like I just like
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
bought some for like $100 that day and became part of that community on Discord ultimately, and kind of kept abreast. And at the same time, we have been thinking about DAOs in Bitcoin space since the beginning, and we thought of them as like a self-owning taxi. We weren't super sophisticated, and we didn't realize that humans were the hands and feet of DAOs, which they abstractly kind of are with Bitcoin too. It's a bunch of people out there running their Bitcoin mining hardware and facilitating Bitcoin transactions. So like in some sense, Bitcoin itself, it is like human. People are layer zero again. And we hadn't really realized that about DAOs. And I started to realize that I run a community group in South Philly that has like 20,000 people on Facebook. And I know a lot of my local businesses. And then when the pandemic hit, I had already been thinking, abstractly, how do we apply this technology to small businesses and let neighborhoods invest in themselves? Because I think it's a natural fit for this tech. And then
Hmm.
the pandemic crushed my neighborhood. I mean, many people's neighborhoods, and lots of businesses just failed or struggled really hard, and at the same time I was on Clubhouse and I was educating people
Hmm.
about NFTs and about DAOs, and I started to think, how do these things really go together? And I would tell people we need to bring small businesses on chain with all their finances and stuff so they can be compliant, and they would satisfy disclosure requirements, so we could invest.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a mouthful, and people were kind of like, okay, I would just be ranting on Clubhouse, and and I pivoted that in January. I've been talking about it. Like, I got on Clubhouse in November of 2020, and then I built uh, a bit of a community around I made a bunch of friends in like
Mm-hmm.
December, and then I was talking about that, and then in January I realized PizzaDAO was a way to encapsulate that mission and those ideas about facilitating small business with crypto rails. And that so I talked about that a lot in January, like hanging out. And then in February, we launched this NFT that brought 314 artists together who all contributed individual toppings, and like really silly ones in some cases, like rocks or cell phones, or I think we have the COVID topping that is rendered all the way
Oh
from
shit.
very small to very big. And uh, and we took all of these toppings and we created our very silly rare pizza NFT. We raised at the time almost $1 million. And what was
Damn.
crazy about this is that we built it from the start of the community was February 18th, and then we threw the global pizza party on May 22nd. The speed
Yeah.
with which we went from kind of the sprout of the community to fundraising, which was a month later, was March 15th. We had $1 million, and then organizing and executing on distributing pizza money for pizzerias to give away pizza during the pandemic, only 2 months later, was, I think, unprecedented and fully enabled by the tech.
Damn. Yeah, that's really, really cool. Yeah, again, to showcase how this stuff isn't just about speculative, number go up technology. This can be a coordination tool, and in so many ways. And you've just described an incredible, incredible experience with all that. So,
And partially because people were working together, I think, because they wanted to do it, right? We all,
mhm,
on at core, I think throwing a global pizza party is really fun. Building a global community around pizza and independent pizzerias is exciting,
mhm,
because it's just clear that it matters. It's clear that the independent pizza makers are making great food, that pizza is a global uniting amazing food, right? So I think we have a lot going for us, but also just the promise that what we were building was in a DAO, like in the spirit of a DAO. And this is before we had any infrastructure that made us anything, right? But just
mhm,
that was how we presented this thing together, and that we promised people that they would get an NFT to represent their participation in this thing. And this was before we had an NFT and way before we delivered said NFT that we promised. Just
mhm.
that, I think, was an amazing tool to align people to work together.
All those coordination tools, all these things that are happening within this DAO structure is like amazing. And the fact that you guys were able to kind of bring this out to light and then continue to push this to become, a fully functioning DAO as well
And
now, right?
yeah,
Or I guess.
we're like not we're not a classic DAO, like, like a
Mhm.
compound DAO or something like that.
Right, right.
We are actually just a multi-sig with Discord signaling, and we're that for real reasons. And that's
Mhm.
because controlling a treasury fully on chain is really scary. It's really
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah, it is.
And it's not, I don't think it's something that community DAOs should do lightly. And yeah.
Yeah, and that's so saying that you guys are a DAO or a fully functioning DAO here is kind of what I was alluding to before. I think we've seen so many disasters in DAOs, and a lot of people can say that the DAO model failed as far as like this truly decentralized, like global kind of coordination layer of, token ownership to try and, vote on different things. And they're really slow. They're very inefficient. You don't know where alignment issues can pop up immediately. But if you can have, I think the things that I've seen it succeed are things like what you guys are offering or what you guys are doing, whereas like you kind of have this like benevolent dictatorship in a sense, right? Or I shouldn't say, maybe not, that's not the best way of putting it, but like where you have some kind of direction and goals and things can kind of be put together and help people get to where they need to be, because not everybody wants to be making decisions. And when you have like a fraction of a percent of a vote, you don't feel like you're heard at all, right? Or even on the other side of this too, when those people who do have a fraction of a percent are really loud in the community and are really loud in forums and governance, for example, that really spoils the whole apple when they really just had a tiny, tiny voice in, in a sense. So
Absolutely.
kind of coming at,
There are
yeah.
tons of kind of dangerous areas of governance. And we're really lucky that we have a mission that we have stuck to. We throw a global pizza party and we're
Mhm.
building a global pizza co-op. And those things are, first of all, throwing a global pizza party, it's easy to support because it's fun. It's like a very
Yeah.
childlike, like, who doesn't want to throw a global pizza party?
Yeah. And everybody was a kid. When you had a birthday party, like chances are it
Yeah,
involved pizza.
exactly. And people ran for their middle school off, president on the pizza party platform. And so I think there's something
Mhm.
very, it's just, pizza is the most popular food on earth. It's like one of the only foods that you can get everywhere that's exciting to get, right? It's like not only is it everywhere, it's also, it's like a treat. It's like, oh, it's, yeah, pizza,
Mhm.
Um, so I think that in and of itself is such a leg up for us because pizza is just fun. It's global. It's, if you're gonna feed an alien one food, like it's probably pizza. Maybe it's ice cream if you think they have a sweet tooth. I don't know, but it's like pizza is awesome. So I think it's kind of a cheat code for us. And as long as we can say in the early days, we solved alignment by saying like, what does pizza want?
Mhm.
Like what? And everyone pretty much says it wants to be eaten. So as long as we're facilitating a more pizza being eaten, then we can't be screwing up so bad.
Yep.
So
Yep.
these are,
Yeah, I think that's
so we have a lot of ways that we sort of think about it. And then, but the core that we're building this global pizza party, I think is easy for people to work together to achieve. And it's a clear thing. And then building for pizzerias is something that we're actually still pretty early into it. And we have,
mhm.
what we've built is trust and relationships.
Right. And so, what is this whole pizzeria, building for pizzerias? What does that look like, or what's kind of that end vision?
So the idea is that independent pizzerias make the best pizza, but they have the worst tech. And that this
Right.
is kind of like a tragedy of the commons because they could all fund great tech together, probably, if they
Hmm.
could work together, but it's a massive alignment problem. Because there are thousands of independent pizzerias. They sell about, I think about half the pizzas, the big chains, about half. The numbers could go a little bit, but it's like approximately half is going to be independents, and it's a massive slice of the market,
Yeah.
and they are not aligned, right? So where the idea of Pizza DAO came from in the beginning was very much about building these open solutions for small businesses. This was before I had realized that pizza was kind of the vessel for this idea, but it's about like, why shouldn't small businesses have access to great open source software? that they are all maintaining together, which is really important, right?
Mm,
That there's that level. And it may not have even been possible, to be honest. Maybe when we first were talking about this, and I think AI has fully changed the situation to the
yeah.
point where we're going to be going very deep into building the whole software stack out in the short term. Like this year, we're gonna start knocking out pieces of the pizzeria software stack, and then working with our friends who we've built relationships with over the years of throwing these pizza parties together. Because in many cases, we know the pizzeria now, like they know who we are.
Yep.
We're kind of, because trust is the most valuable commodity, I guess. Or it's not a commodity, it's like you can't trust is hard to come by, and if you have trust,
Yeah.
then it makes everything so much easier. So if I came up to you off the street and you're a pizzeria and I said, "Hey, use my software," you're like, "Okay, buddy, like talk like put your email in the jar, like talk to you never."
Yeah.
Uh, but if you're a PizzaDAO and and you know what we've been doing as a pizzeria owner, and you know we've been a steady customer of yours for years, and that we do this global thing, and that we've been talking about doing this for a while, and then we come to you and we say, "Hey, we have this tool," and we'll be building it actually side by side with many of them, so they'll even be like dog fooding it with us. Um,
Right.
but if, let's say, you're like a little bit outside of that network, right, and you're not like one of the ones who were hand in hand building this tooling with, but you're someone who maybe once we have a functioning version, we ask you to try it out. I think there's a high likelihood that you give it a chance.
Yeah, and especially if, you mentioned how AI tooling is going to be able to help people to either A, understand it, or B, be able to interact and interface with it and be able to apply it to what they already have. It seems like if we're starting to get into that reality sooner than later, which is amazing. So like you said, we're at that kind of precipice now where this can happen and this could become something viable, to be honest. So
Yeah, like in PizzaDAO, we used to have and still do have a constellation of spreadsheets that constitutes the core of the DAO, and it was a huge asset for us to have that as AI came of age, and we could now, every I think there's a saying someone coined that's like every app or every spreadsheet is just an app waiting to happen.
mm,
And so we were able to sort of turn all of our spreadsheets into apps. And now, instead of brain dumping into spreadsheets, we brain dump pretty much right into Claude. So we have, like, for the global pizza party, we have the site gpp.day, and it is sort of the brains of Pizza Day. And when we think of stuff that we should do or remember or what have you, we dump it into, we have a little pencil on every page on GBP Day, and you can just drop a comment, and then we process it with Claude, all the comments, and
mm,
integrate them into the actual site, the whole schema. And I think this is the way that, and we're not even, I wouldn't say we're particularly sophisticated about this. I think that there are larger organizations who have brought Anthropic internally, right? You hear about this, how they, they're
sure.
bringing the AI companies into their offices, and they're facilitating all sorts of stuff for them. And so, and this kind of called back to what we were talking about earlier, like where it's a little creepy to have AI everywhere and touching everything. And but as you start to build an organization that is using AI as kind of like the, I don't know, like the ghost of the machine, or it's just like kind of everywhere and touching everything, you start to actually want to have it privy to all of your conversations, which is a weird
Yeah.
thing. Like you start
Yeah.
to feel like, oh, why are we not inviting the AI into this meeting? If the AI had been in the meeting, then a lot of things maybe would have already been followed up on or already been recorded. And we haven't
Yeah.
made this transition
Yeah.
yet, but we don't, we have crew calls every week. We we have 3 days of community working group sessions that are in different it's like comms, ops, biz dev, creative, kind of like the core subgroups of an organization. And we have not invited AI into those meetings yet. And we don't even really have it processing our community call, although we could backfill because we are recording them. We're not recording the crew calls or anything.
Yeah.
But we're starting to think we should invite it in because it just who wants to take notes?
Yeah, nobody wants to take notes, man. That's why I started using, I think I'm using Fireflies, and I was even starting to evaluate like just Gemini throughout Google Meets, right? Because a lot of the calls that I deal with are Google Meet, so it's already in there. It kind of works, but there's some complications with just using Gemini because you have to be the owner, you have to have like a workspace, and then, so if somebody else sets up the meet, it just gets messy. So, Fireflies, or I think Granola is maybe
I've heard
another one that
granola. I feel like
supposedly good.
granola is the one. Um,
I think I might be
got a
pivoting to
good
that. We'll
brand. I think I
see.
like it more than I know nothing about it
Yeah,
besides the name, but I
yeah,
think
yeah,
it's a better name.
yeah. It's probably a better name. Yeah, agreed. Fireflies is a little spooky,
Yeah,
maybe.
like
Anyway,
it's really
but I
dark.
think I heard that I heard Granola's privacy stuff is allegedly better, so that might be worth it there. And so with this, having AI integrated in things is like a double-edged sword, right? Because you are putting yourself on that risk of what privacy, what things could get leaked. How does AI, even into the future, how does it benefit from this and actually work against you for some unknown reason,
It
an
makes us
unknown
into
unknown?
pizza.
Yeah, we could just become pizza at the end of this. Yeah. But for what you're talking about though, where note taking, nobody wants to take notes anymore. So the fact that AI can just handle that, and like that's something I'm actually working on now with some of my workflows, is like to be able to have AI in a conversation, or me just opening up a meet and just talking, and then taking, okay, those notes get puked out, they turn into action items. How does that actually
That whole
how do
flow,
we get
yeah.
shit done with it? I mean, it makes sense, and we're finally there. I was trying this like 18 months
Oh,
ago. I don't
huge
know, it's
shift,
12 or
huge
18 months
shift.
ago. I was like, and it was just not even close back then. But now we're getting there. Things can happen, and especially with the vibe coding side of stuff, like you can just spin up websites and interfaces. Like I have a dashboard now that's just been vibe coded, and it works. Just, and it's basically like Notion, but it's just like it works the way I want it to work versus like, oh, how do I have to figure out how to do it? No, I just want this. It's built, it works, it's the way I want it, it's all I need. Amazing. So I can see that where people are starting to benefit from that side of like this coordination efforts and to be able to be more efficient. But I don't know. I don't know with this whole like privacy side of it. Like I'm not sure because we've only known that like leaking your data and giving, the more data that you give out has always been a disaster. And that's why I'm just like, I look at all of these, database leaks where people are now getting scam calls or getting, death threats, or even like you look at what was happening in
Oh man.
France, right?
It
With like
affects our
the
ability
ledger.
to organize events there. People are afraid to organize events,
Yeah.
actually, and to go to them.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them. It's terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like when you start bringing people's lives and security into things, that's where I start getting concerned. And I want to see people safe. I want to see, or, even people that are just trying to like do stuff for the world, just trying to put some pizza into people's mouths, right? And like the fact that that could turn out to be, some sort of a security breach, just through, trying to be more efficient and coordinating and actually get that out and be more scalable. It's a scary place. And I don't know. I think there's going to be, we're going to see a couple of disasters, I'm sure, as we always do, but that's likely going to bring us closer to ways where this stuff will be more efficient, as far as on a security standpoint and like a privacy standpoint. I think we're going to get there, or at least I hope we are anyhow.
Yeah, I'm not as worried about. It's when you're dealing with private data, I think that it gets dangerous. Like for PizzaDAO and the service areas that we're considering letting AI touch, which would be our meetings and I
Mhm.
we have a So like some infrastructure that we have that is just so valuable to us and is not obvious is that we have a Telegram chat for every city. So that's hundreds of cities.
Yes. Yeah.
And we have
Yeah. I'm
and
in a
yeah,
couple
and
of
not
them.
only do we have that bot in the or sorry, not only do we have those chats, we have a bot in each of those chats. And if you know about making Telegram bots, you can't add them programmatically. They need to be added by a human
Right.
because I think it's like a security risk, or it's just like, they don't. It's like a yeah.
Yeah, it's a nightmare with Telegram bots. It's a nightmare. I was gonna add, like, that's a good point because we want to start adding bots into these things, and then they can start getting kicked out. And especially if it's the same bot, and if it's like doing too many reads and too many calls, like I've seen this in the past where these bots just get kicked out, and so now you have to like bring that whole bot. You have to go through that whole flow to bring it back in. So it seems like that's a big
So,
problem to
but we've been
solve.
lucky. So
So
so far,
yeah.
Moto Benny bot is safe.
Mhm.
He has not been kicked. And but the point I'm making is just that the value and the time it took for us to build 500 Telegram groups and to add a bot to
Mhm.
every single one and to fill them all with people, is now we have them. And it's such a huge asset that we built this because the bot isn't, and we haven't implemented this yet, but like I remember I heard Brian Armstrong, right? He was doing a podcast and he was talking about how
Okay.
he had bots that were monitoring Slack and servicing to him when there were issues that arose. And so he could, because Coinbase is massive, right? He has no idea what's happening in lots of parts of the company at any given time. How could he know? But when something's going off the rails, that his AI monitoring bots on Slack would surface this to him, I thought was just fascinating. And similarly, well, not we don't have Slack, but we do have these Telegram groups, and sometimes there are issues. Somebody loses a venue, or who knows, like
Mhm.
something happens, right? And we can actually surface these issues to ourselves with a bit of AI analysis.
Hmm. Yeah, and it helps with, yeah, the whole monitoring process, like you say. That seems, especially in this large coordination effort, like really helps with the human coordination side of things.
Yes, because people all have different communications strategies and
Mhm.
just ways of being. And
Mhm.
if there's anything I've learned as a community organizer, it's that it's easy to have miscommunications. And as a
Oh
community
yeah.
organizer, my role is to smooth those out because usually both
Yep.
people have legitimate feelings about the situation and even have perspectives that can find common ground, but communication is hard. It is just hard.
Yep. Yeah. It really is. And so it brings an interesting point with communities, and obviously community building, just as well as any other community builder. These things are complicated, they're hard, they're complex, and there's a lot of complex personalities throughout them. I refer to certain individuals, I'll call it, as liabilities throughout communities, and I think you understand what I'm saying here, or what I mean, where these people are just they seem to cause problems, or there's conflict around them. How do you handle liabilities, or how have you seen a good way of handling this, or what are some tips that you can give to people on it? Because it's not an easy path, and nobody wants to deal with it either, and a lot of people will just step away from it. But I think it's something that needs to be addressed, and community builders need that, because that's a hard one. That's like, okay, we got to put the warrior suit on here and go deal
Yes.
with
Yeah.
this.
Sometimes you have to pull out the band hammer, just period. You have to make the decision and just, and then deal with the fallout. And it can be personal. I mean, when I have enemies in my neighborhood in Philadelphia who I banned from my Facebook group because they were sharing memes that weren't about Philadelphia. And I did it to protect the group because the group is about South Philly And if people are posting content that's not about South Philly, then it ruins the group. And in PizzaDAO or in our city groups, if someone is causing a problem, every situation is different. It's a very
Mhm.
because I try to keep in mind as a community organizer that I'm not sure which founding father it was that said something about innocent go better like guilty go free than innocent get punished. I feel like it might have been Jefferson. I don't know who it was.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
and I and with communities, you're not the punishment is not so severe. So I think you sometimes for the sake of the group, you actually do have to be a little more strict than you might be. But at the same time, I try to be just whenever because sometimes people who cause a problem or if if you come to an agreement, they can be your strongest allies because they may just be very passionate people and it's about knowing who you're dealing with.
Yep.
Sometimes someone, yeah, they're just not cut out to be part of the community and offboarding people is hard. Because you don't want to be unfair. And so I find myself as an admin, I'm kind of like if I see someone and they're causing trouble, you kind of have to wait until they do something that's like really bad or something. And then, I mean, it depends, right? But like
Mhm.
sometimes I'll just be like, okay, like this is not going great. Like I'm gonna watch this, and then they do something that's not acceptable, and you're like, okay, that's it. It's a weird thing, because yeah, so if somebody like pees in the pool or whatever, everybody wants to get out of the pool. So,
Yeah.
well,
Yep.
or, maybe you might have to do worse than pee for everybody to be aware, but it's like, you don't, community is like that. Like you can really ruin a party can be ruined by one person. That can happen.
Yeah.
That's like super real. And so how do you, I think the most important way to deal with that is to have everybody at the party know each other so they can kind of be like, well, who's this guy? And if that person, it's
Mm.
like, who's,
Mhm.
people are like, whose man is this? Uh, and if
Yeah.
and if you
Who's
don't
liable
have
for this? Yeah.
anybody who's gonna back you, like that's the easiest way, right? You say like,
Mhm.
who claims this person who's causing an issue, and do you know how to communicate with this person? Can you
Yeah.
facilitate
Mhm.
some sort of resolution here? And if you can't get that, it can be hard. It can be hard if somebody's got a problem. And sometimes, yeah, you just have to ban them. Sometimes you can have a chat and you say, hey, these are the things you're doing, and they are. This is just not appropriate for this situation. You're not doing yourself any favors. You're making enemies potentially, or ruining people's day. Like, why are you doing this? And this is not happening all the time in Pizza Now. I think what like I'm actually speaking even more to my experience in other communities running like being a community leader.
Mhm.
In Pizza Now, the issue we find mostly is that people can be a little competitive about who's hosting the party. And and we
Ah, yeah.
and we
Of course.
want the party to be a big tent type of an affair in every city. We want groups to be in the same space because the crypto community, it's not that big. It's not that big, and you can fit in most
No.
cities. You can fit a fair majority of the crypto community in one room, and you can buy them pizza, and that's our goal. So sometimes there are local disputes that we sort of step into, and we don't know, but
Ah, yeah.
people are people, and actually, the longer the ecosystem lives, the sometimes um, the more opportunities there are for maybe people to build disagreements and misunderstandings. So we do certainly have to deal with that. And that is hard.
Mhm.
Because you don't know. You just don't know the situation. You don't know who's right. You don't know who to go with. We'll generally if you've done us favors, like we're gonna show allegiance, right? Generally, like if you're the one who's organizing with us, we're gonna show allegiance because you've done right by us as PizzaDAO, and
Right.
but in some cases we have learned that we should not be working with the person we're working with, and we will shift in the situation. So,
Mm.
but that's like a big one. I think that's a big one, is where different communities have beef, basically, for whatever
Yeah.
reason. It could be,
Yeah.
some misunderstanding that blew up. It could be something more serious. There could be allegations of foul play, or
Oh,
like
of
you just don't
anything.
know.
Yeah.
And we kind
Yeah.
of stick our nose into that, like not entirely on purpose. And sometimes like we're like, oh crap, we gotta navigate this dispute in such and such a place.
Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. There's with the what I like to look at when you refer to as like the ban, use the ban hammer in online communities. I've started to become very liberal about just ban first, ask questions second. And just because I've spent so much time, in my how many years I've been dealing with, crypto communities and online communities in general, find that it just ruins the rest of the community, and everyone is focused on that and is taking away and distracting from like the main mission or the main goals. Have that sidebar with that person, and you actually brought up a really good point where those people can become your strongest allies. And I've had that happen where people were calling me by whatever name it was, they hated me because of this and that, or thought I was, you know hey, let's have a chat. What are we doing? What are we talking about? And like, it's even got to the point where I've had in the early days, like I had people who were mad at me for whatever X, Y, and Z, all the way going to building proposals with them and actually being on,
Because passion is
like and
passion. Like
sharing,
you can't,
a cool idea.
you have to
That's it.
respect passion. E-
Yeah.
Even if it's
Yeah.
counter
Yeah.
to,
And I think that's a great.
what your mission is. Like if it's, if it has a basis in reality, that's important. But but it's passion. Then passion is, it's really, that's how everything gets done. You need passionate people.
Yeah. Right. And I think like passion comes from, I think, people's truth. And that's something I really like to follow or talk about is like, hey, are you following your truth? And generally that, passion is stems from that, I guess. And I, I want to see people that are passionate about things. I want to involve them in it. I want to see them grow and flourish as well. Sometimes, the wrong type of passion can create a
And
real
in digital
mess.
communities,
So
it's harmless to ban. If you ban someone, you can still,
it,
they can still DM you. You can still talk it out.
yeah,
It's not
yeah,
that serious. Uh, when it comes to it, it definitely gets trickier if you have somebody like trying to show up to an event who is not welcome at an
yeah,
event. That is
yeah.
not pleasant, but that doesn't happen very often for us.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like less and less of that just because people realize like, oh, I'm not welcome, and it's like it's not going to be a fun time. I'm
Yeah.
coming here to create a problem, and those things, when you do get to that stage and actually dealing with in-person conflicts, that's it's a bigger topic, and one that I'm still, man, trying to navigate throughout my journeys here as being a community builder, especially here in Vancouver. Like we're going to be, it seems like we have a new space lined up here for decentral or decontrol, and we're going to be expanding, right? So we're going to be doing co-working and hosting events, or assemblies as we like to call them, and having other membership where it's just maybe you're just somebody that likes to come and hang out and have a hangout space, and just a much bigger space, more comprehensive. And now, how do we keep and curate? You almost need to curate the space, because if you just open it to anybody, well, you have somebody that's the complete slob and just ruining everything, and being loud and annoying, or whatever. There's all kinds of problems that can come with opening your doors to the world. But this is something that we're gonna have. I'm sure I'm gonna have a few sit downs with people, and yeah, not looking forward to it, but it's like a necessary thing. Somebody has to do it, and
And do
who's
it
going to do
fast.
it,
And
right?
like, and also, I think a rule like that, I really believe in, I guess people would say, call it like attraction theory, and not in
Hmm.
like a spooky way, but in just whatever you have, you're gonna attract more of that. And this is very true about communities. I was joking about how it's true for pins. If you have a bunch of pins and you go out in the world, people are gonna give you pins. And if you have a bunch of sloppy people at your workspace, you might get more sloppy people. And if you have people who are treating it with a lot of
Yes.
respect, and because you want people, I think this is true in digital and physical space. You want people who are going to read the room. And as long as you're
Yeah.
bringing in people who are going to read the room and the room is doing what you want the room to do, that's important too. The room has to be the right room that they're coming in to read. You know, the writing on the wall has to be conveying what you want. But if you have a space where everyone's treating it with respect and it's kind of functioning the way you want, and then you introduce people to the space, they will assimilate into the way that
Mm.
because they respect. Uh, I think people do naturally respect the custom of where they are thrust into. Like we're very adaptive creatures, especially socially, and you just need to make it easy for people to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a really great way of putting it. The fact that you attract what you want, and people will, if you attract respect, if you show respect, you will attract respect, and keep that positive feedback loop going. And again, like there's always going to be these little liabilities and these outliers and what else. But if you have we should almost work towards building like some sort of a playbook for that. I'm sure that exists, and maybe this is a good thing now with AI. We can just like, okay, here's the scenario of this person. Here's what's been
So,
going on. Here's the situation. How do we help diffuse it, right? And then I don't have to go through and think about all this. Actually, I just here's what read the
so
slop to the
this is a really
individual, and
crazy thing, and I totally what a phenomenon that is, which is that you can now, instead of having to appeal to like authority or appeal to religion or appeal to, you can appeal to AI and you can kind of say, so you're confronting someone who's acting in a way that is inappropriate. And you can say, so look, I asked GPT about how you were acting, and this is what GPT said. And GPT, people accept it as this authority. And you
right.
can kind of, and I've seen this play out actually online. Like I remember a guy, there was like a negotiation about a business and the guy was being vague about the facets of the business and kind of public. And then someone was like, well, I talked to
Hmm.
GPT and it said I should ask you these questions. Like, can you answer these questions about your business? And so it is enforcing this kind of level
Yeah.
of, it's really, I don't know how that's gonna pan out. I think it's a really fascinating kind of consensus building thing that is happening where people, they just trust the AI perspective. And but
Yeah.
I mean, I could see it being kind of
Well,
useful as a, if I'm a community manager and someone's behaving in a bad way and I can just say,
yeah.
well, look, so this is my conversation with the AI about how you've been behaving, and I just want you to know this is accepted wisdom about about how we should approach this and about why what you did was maybe inappropriate. And I, I think it's harder to argue with that than a person. It's a very weird
Yeah.
world.
It's it's wild, and just in our conversation about this right now, like it's got me already firing about how do we build now an AI chatbot that is the arbiter
Sounds risky.
for dispute resolution. It's super risky, but like so is like one of the people from the community going out and actually dealing with that person and having to deal with the conflict and all of the you know, complexities of dispute resolution. And not everybody in a community has gone to school to learn how to do dispute resolution or any of this stuff. However, GPT has, or any model for that matter, has access to probably better information than even people who did go to school. And so now if you can train this model to say, okay, it has understands humanity's best cases or best efforts or best practices in communities, and so you fill it with that model, and or with fill that model with those parameters, and then you have the the dispute, then you have the problems that came with it, with that person's case, I guess. You upload that. The bot is now able to like work through this with this other person. And
Like
you can just
maybe
do this in Discord,
I'm
right?
not comfortable with that yet. I would definitely put a human in the loop, but I do think that I do think that it's gonna make it easier in some cases because well, so like I don't know if this is accepted wisdom on how to solve disputes, but when I'm dealing with a dispute, usually it's two people who are having a dispute, and so I message them both, I DM them
Right.
both, and I get their side of the story. I decide if both sides are reasonable, and I talk to them about if they're what they're saying is reasonable first, like from my own. I and I try to understand, and then once I've come to a place where I think both sides have a reasonable position and I talk to them a little bit about the outcome that they want to see, then I will get them both to sign off on the outcome. And only then do I reintroduce them to each other. So that's generally how I
Mm.
approach it. Like I kind of, because the other thing that is so important in these situations is dignity and respect, and because there's no consensus that's going to happen without dignity for all parties involved. It's just not. You're not going to get, assuming that everyone has a reasonable issue that they're reacting to, or like has a reasonable position in a dispute. You They need dignity in order to exit the dispute with an agreement and with with pride. Pride is important. People want to, so you have to really think about how to facilitate that for people so they can both feel like they were respected, got what they wanted out of the situation, and it's just a non-starter if either party is going to feel disrespected at the end of it. That it's not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great analogy on all that, and probably a great place to wrap things up here as we talk about respect and dignity. So amazing stuff. All right. Thanks, Snax. Where's if people want to learn about you, the pizza party, everything? Feel free to
So
share it out here.
pizzadao.org, globalpizza.party. I'm snacks.eth, SNAX, or snack_man on X. And yeah, come hang out in the PizzaDAO Discord if you want to be part of PizzaDAO. We're there all the time.
Yeah, and you've got like a really cool onboarding system there. You can pick your own name and a variety of other things. So like, that whole new onboarding process is pretty cool. Bacon Scorsese. So
Yeah, Enzo
yeah, yeah,
Pepperoni. For those who may not know this about PizzaDAO, Snow Crash is very important to our lore, and we
cool.
are, yeah,
Hmm.
we kind of joke that we are building the pizza mafia here on Earth.
Nice, nice. Yeah, so I have to be a little bit honest about Snow Crash. I'm about halfway through, and this was the time where I was reading this like years ago now, but it was the time where I first started getting into VR and started like really diving into it. So I was having trouble reading the book because I'm like, well, I can just go live it right now. And I was like starting to get into these pretty complex worlds. Like it was like VR chat on steroids though. So I think a lot of people are not familiar with VR chat, and
Yeah,
like Altspace kind of had a moment with Microsoft. And actually, I got really connected to the Altspace community because it was hosting like BRC VR, which is like the Burning Man versions on during the
that's
pandemic,
pretty cool.
right? So it was really cool to be able to go and interact with burners in that sense. But like Altspace was just a head and a ball. It was a joke, right? But now in some of these other platforms, like at the time it was called Neos, now it's called Resonite, and this thing is just like complete. It's VR chat on steroids. You can build any environment you want, and yeah, pretty wild. So that's where I started not having. Not really finishing the book because I was like too busy reading, or too busy living all of those things. So I feel bad that I haven't finished it, but yeah, definitely will at some point here. Maybe this is a good point to actually get that
Yeah, it's a
done.
good one.
So yes, absolutely. Well, and I mean, coined the metaverse and everything too. So that's pretty key and pretty crucial. Which I thought the metaverse was going to be showing up a
It's
lot,
coming back.
you know, in the VR metaverse, I should say, because I mean, we can argue that like we are currently in the metaverse right now, right? Between Discord, between, you know, X and all these other social online coordination efforts, right?
I
We
kind of
can
do.
argue that
I
that
kind of do.
is
Yeah, I
the,
think that I
yeah,
think of the metaverse these
yeah,
days as just like all that is not physical is, and even like the world of ideas I sort of think of as the metaverse. Like
mm,
Bitcoin is the currency of the metaverse.
yep, yep, yeah, cool, cool. All right, Snacks. Well, thank you again, and yeah,
Yeah,
appreciate your
thanks for
time.
having me. This
We'll
was
talk
fun.
to you soon, man.